As a developer, you love building things that are fun and that matter. Do you want to add authentication to yet another app? Do you want to stay updated with all the security issues and patch them? Why not leave that to the experts? Auth0 is the easiest and fastest way to implement real-world authentication and authorization architectures into your apps and APIs. You can allow your users to log in with either regular username and password, social identity providers like Facebook and Twitter, or enterprise identity providers like Active Directory, Office 365, or without passwords with an email login like Slack or phone login like WhatsApp. Getting started is very easy. Add authentication to your Angular 1 or 2 Plus or Ionic app in less than 10 minutes by writing only a few lines of code. No credit card required. Get the free plan or try the enterprise plan for 21 days at auth0.io/adventures in Angular. That's auth0 with the number 0. Auth0 is trusted by developers at Atlassian, Mozilla, Bluetooth, Optimizely, Financial Times, and the Wall Street Journal. Try it out at auth0.io/adventures in Angular. That's the number 0 in Auth0, and get back time building core features. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Adventures in Angular show. This week on our panel we have Joe Eames.
Hey everybody.
I'm Charles Max Wood from devchat.tv, and we have a special guest this week. It's Justin I'm just kidding. It's Schwartzenberger.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. I was going to make a joke about just making the schwa sound and then putting about 6 syllables after it, but
the actual correct pronunciation is unpronounceable by the human tongue.
Right. That's kind of the way you pronounce it is kind of the way I sign it. I kind of do an S and then just a bunch of squiggles. So yeah, that fits.
Yeah.
Practicing to become a doctor.
Yeah, right.
I had a friend in high school, and his last name had 4 L's, 2 Y's, and a W in it. And so that's what he did. It was just a whole bunch of up and down.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, but my day on Twitter finally came where they extended the size of your profile name. So now my entire first and last name fits. So I'm pretty stoked about that.
Oh, when you said your day on Twitter came, I thought Donald Trump had retweeted you or something. And so half the country hated you and the other half the country loved you.
That would not be a day I'd look forward to.
I don't think many Trump supporters would look forward to that, too. I mean, that'd just be a hassle. Anyway, so we brought you on. Joe invited you on, I think, to talk about Angular Air, which it's fun. It's fun to talk to other podcasters about what's going on.
Yeah, it should be pretty cool.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Before we get too deep into that, though, I noticed that you're working at Narwhal.
That's correct.
It seems like all the cool kids are over there now. What are you doing over there?
So I'm a product manager and educator over there. I help our clients. I do trainings and workshops, put together material for learning and stuff like that, as well as do some consultation and on-demand support, things like that.
Nice. Well, I don't think you're at Narwhal now, is going to stop anytime soon, running into people. So.
Yeah, it's happening. It's happening.
Nice.
Awesome.
So, Joe, where did you run into Justin at?
What do you mean, like the last time?
Yeah, so when you invited him, was it just this is a great idea, or did you run into each other at Angular Connect, or what?
I think it was because I was on the show. We were talking about ngconf over on Angular Air.
Oh, there you go.
All right. So Aaron Frost and I were over talking about it, and I just had this idea. I was like, why don't we have Justin come on to AiA and talk about Angular Air? And I'm sure there's lots of fun history we could talk about, and it's always interesting to see how other podcasters do their stuff. And Justin's a big guy in our tiny little world of Angular, so it's always good to have.
Joe. You're too kind.
High-profile people on the show as well.
Nice.
So yeah, I think that's where I ran into him. But what I saw, were you at Angular Connect, Justin? I can't remember. You weren't, right?
Yep. Yeah, I was.
You were, okay. Then we also ran into each other in Florida at Angular Mix.
Yep.
So we've run into each other a couple of times pretty recently.
I've seen you a lot this year.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Did you speak at Angular Connect? I forget.
I did not. We did a workshop. Jeff Cross and I did a workshop, but I didn't do a talk, just a workshop.
Nice.
Yeah, I do a lot of volunteering at Angular Connect where I'm managing the little side tracks and stuff, so I don't get to see very many of the sessions.
That was my first time at Angular Connect, and actually it was my first time out of the country. So it was a
That's
Oh,
right.
wow.
That's right.
yeah, pretty amazing experience. So I got a long 10-hour flight, longest flight I've ever had. Got to go out of the country and go through the whole passport process and all that stuff. And then my first Angular Connect experience. And Angular Connect is an amazing conference. They do a really good job putting that on, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Does that include Canada and Mexico? You've never been to either of those places?
Yeah, I've never been either there. I've been to the Bahamas. And so I guess technically I've been out of the country, but I kind of don't count that because it's like
Right.
a stone's
Kinda
throw
own
away from home. So,
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
but yeah.
Very cool. So go ahead,
I thought
Joe.
it would be interesting to talk to Justin. I mean, I'd like to hear more about Narwhal before we really get into the show or start talking about Angular Air. So you started over at Narwhal. It's led by Jeff Cross and Victor Savkin, who used to be on the Angular core team. How long have you been there now?
Since July. So almost half a year.
Almost half a year.
Yeah.
And how do you like it? What do you spend your days doing? And are you happy with the move? And what does that meant for your life?
Yeah, good question. I love it. I'm really enjoying it. It's, one of the awesome aspects of it is being able to work with Jeff and Victor and now Aijagol and Tor on a regular basis to be able to pick their brains, interact with them, go over content, all this stuff. It's pretty amazing. It's kind of like, being able to unite with other people that have done a lot of this stuff. We're talking Angular and that sort of thing, and have covered a lot of topics. And so to just be able to crunch things across with each other, talk about these advanced concepts, it's really, really exciting and really a great experience at that, at this point in my career, and at this point, as well as the opportunity. I really love helping people out, teaching, guiding, making people be awesome. Helping them be awesome. And I get that opportunity to do that on a daily basis with Narwhal. I get to help our clients solve challenging problems, help guide them in understanding these advanced Angular concepts and how to do Angular well, both on an enterprise level and being consistent with having success with Angular. So to get to share that kind of stuff with them and do that as my day-to-day job, as well as writing. I get to write a lot of content. Writing is a big passion of mine, so I enjoy typing words, and it's great. It's really, really exciting. And then just the positive vibes that we have around Narwhal and the company. It's great to go around and you go to Angular Connect, all these places, and everybody's always excited to talk to you and interact with you. And like, oh, the Narwhal, like you mentioned, that's where all the cool people. There's cool people everywhere, but it certainly is fun to be part of that unit and doing the things that we're doing.
Yeah, I bet.
So when is Narwhal going to move over to doing Vue instead of Angular? Because that's where the world's going now, right?
Yeah, there's many directions that it's going. We're very focused on Angular and delivering that focused solution. So I don't foresee that anytime in the future, but who knows?
I was being tongue in cheek.
Right.
Nice.
Awesome. So let's talk about Angular Air. I'm interested, first off, is to talk about when, Angular Air's history overall and your involvement in it, and that. Just kind of give us a rundown of the whole history of Angular Air up through now.
Yeah, totally. So Angular Air is what we like to call a video cast. We do video. It's kind of like a podcast, but there's video involved, and we're a 1 hour show every week. On Tuesdays, and we try and present content. We try and get guests that'll come on that'll present content that we can visually show, so kind of like some demos with some discussions, but we also do discussion shows as well. So it's a mix of those, but we try and focus on the fact that we have this video medium and that we can showcase, demo code and things like that. It's been around for several years, started by Kent C. Dodds and Todd Motto. Kent C. Dodds, I think, drove most of that effort there, was hosting it for a good while. I think maybe a year. I don't know the exact time. And then Jeff Welpley took that over. And he carried it on for probably about a year. And then about maybe October or something, late last year. I started working with him. I came on and co-hosted with him a couple times, and then he was ready to move on. He got real busy with his stuff. I asked if I'd be interested in taking it over, and I was absolutely stoked to do that. So then I kind of took it over from there, and I've been running with it. But it's been pretty consistent, the same, over these years of every week, one show. We do it live. We kick it off. We record it live, so it's live, and then we just do it through YouTube. And then at the end of the hour, when we're done with the show, then it just automatically gets captured and then gets put up onto YouTube to watch later. So, yeah.
Very cool. And it's more than just you and a guest, right? It's, from what I understand,
Correct.
always been a panel show like ours.
Yep. So I'm the host. I kind of run and maintain it, and then we get our guests. And then I currently have 4 active panelists. We got Bonnie Brennan, Melissa Eichel, Austin McDaniel, and Mike Brocky, and they're regular panelists right now. We have a bunch of other panelists that have been on and off the show, and kind of always have an open invitation for any of them to just let me know what show they want to come on, and they can come on and we can swap people out or whatnot. But and I generally run it where we get our guests on. It's really focused about the guest and the delivery of their content. I help guide the direction of that and keep that on pace. And then our panelists help to inject questions and things that try and help convey what the topic is that the guest is providing, and link that to and deliver value for our viewers and stuff like that.
Or derail the conversation, as some people do.
Or sometimes that happens. Yeah, so that happens. And then it's my job to try and say, okay, how can I move that to keep us on track? So,
Boy, am I familiar with that feeling?
All right. So my biggest question then is, how many times has the word dumpster fire been used on your show?
I think it's only been used by you when you came on. we have I try and my touch to it. I try and bring this ultimate positivity all the time to it. I'm always smiling and laughing. I can never stop smiling at it. So I try and avoid terms not avoid terms like that, but like try and guide it into a more positive thing. Not that dumpster fire is a negative thing, but I don't know. Maybe that's why. Maybe people are scared to say dumpster fire. They're certainly welcome to, but yeah. But sometimes we get into it, and sometimes we talk about the things, the challenges and stuff. But I always try and take a positive spin on it. So if we come across something that's like, oh man, change detection in Angular is really a pain in the butt or whatever, we try and put a little spin on saying, oh well, it sucks to run into these sort of things, but how can we it is good for this and that sort of thing. So
that's ultimately what we do here as well. In a lot of ways, is this is really hard, and we try and ask the questions, well, then what can we do to make it better? And I think that's important. I mean, even if it's just, well, be aware that the problem's out there so you can work around it in the first place instead of trying to solve 2 problems.
I always like to follow it up with, that's why we get paid well.
Yeah.
If it wasn't hard, you wouldn't be able to afford the cars that you're driving.
This is true. And, it's always hard, Joe, as you're an educator, that it's hard to figure out how to convey and get people to learn hard concepts, right?
Oh yeah.
So we're always trying to, and we get a mix of topics that come onto our show that people present, that some are pretty straightforward and then others are hard. And so myself and our panelists, we try and distill that down as our guests deliver something that's more challenging. How can we just rephrase it really quick to maybe help it sink in for other people and that sort of thing? It's just a collaborative effort to deliver that content.
Yep.
Gotcha. So let's talk about a little bit, just dig back since you've been involved here. I'm interested to find out what have been your favorite episodes of Angular Era. And I'll be kind to you and just say, don't pick any of the episodes that I've been on, because I know those are the obvious choices. But outside of the times that I've been on the show, what have been your favorite episodes you've had?
Okay, so I knew that you'd be asking me something like this, and so I prepared for this, right? And you're probably not going to like my answer, but I'll get a little more detail into it. So I I really love all of our episodes. I really love all the time that our guests provide, whoever it is, whenever it is, that they are gracious enough to provide that time to provide this content for our community. So I really don't have a favorite. I don't like to pick favorites in that sense. I just love everybody for contributing that time. But that being said, I do enjoy, we had an episode where we talked about Onur. I forget his last name. Sorry, Onur. But he talked about RxJS and really broke it down, observables and stuff like that. I thought that was a really good episode of how he delivered that content and got through the understanding. Anytime David East is on the show and talking about Firebase, that stuff's always exciting. We just had Stephen Fluin on yesterday, and so that was really cool. He really smoked it on the keyboard. Doing some live coding was pretty impressive. He really nailed it and conveyed those concepts really well. All of our guests do such a great job at preparing content that's going to fit within an hour, 40 minutes, and delivering that stuff and giving us an opportunity to discuss those points. I love them all.
One thing that I'm curious about. What was that, Joe?
It's just a good answer.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I'm curious about, just running the shows and making sure that everything goes live and everything like that. One thing that I'm always trying to stay on top of is what's current, what's interesting, and how do I find guests that can cover topics that people are struggling with, right? And so it's part understanding what people's problems are and part understanding who's out there that has the answer. How do you tackle that?
So, good question. When I first took it over from Jeff, I was super paranoid and stressed about, oh man, I gotta be on top of this. So I sat down and made a big giant list of all these topics that I felt I had a feel on the pulse of the industry at the time, of what was interesting, what was hot, what people wanted to know. And I just made that list. And then I started going down it and thinking about my contacts and the people I know, the people I know that know them, and who would fit for that, or what blog post I've read, or somebody talked about that topic, or who did a talk at NGConf on that. And then just start filling in the blanks and get that all dialed in. So when I first took it over, I backlogged this whole thing for weeks, and that was great, right? I had it all lined up. And then as I went forward and I started whittling down that list and was running out of shows and got close to the time where I needed to book some more, then I did a couple more and kind of checked the pulse at that time and kind of went with that. Now, as I'm ramping up to the end of the year here, I've actually kind of got pretty lucky here. Some of our panelists went out and grabbed a couple people. We also had some people that reached out and with some topics, and so now we've got another buffer of talks lined up that kind of came together. So I think I like to, and I tell people a lot, like devs a lot that are getting into this realm, the front end development or this stuff, like you need to be on Twitter, maybe not to be active on Twitter, but you need to be following people on Twitter, because there's a lot of, you get the pulse of what's going on, right? And so I get a lot of that from following the content that streams through Twitter to try and get an idea of what is going on in our Angular community and what are people looking for, what are people struggling with, what are people drawing their attention to, and then kind of go off of that to say, oh, look, we need to talk about that, right? We need to cover that. We need to get somebody on for that, this or that. And thankfully, up to this point, everything that I've lined up and figured out people to do, people have been able to do that. I haven't really had any challenging moments yet, except for actually a couple times. We do a couple, we have our fill-in shows. I don't know if you have this with Adventures in Angular, but we do a Today I Learned episode. We've done about 3 of those where we have guests lined up, and we just, all the panelists kind of come up with 2 or 3 things that they do in code or little tricks and tips they do in Angular, and we just do a TAL show. And those are our filler shows when we actually didn't have anybody lined up.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I have a handful of those that I tend to pull out, and that's not one of them, actually. Usually it's, what's your development environment, or, what tools or plugins do you pull in on Angular, right? So, I usually Angular Fire or something, whatever. It's just things like that, because we can talk about what we do every day and inform people on that kind of thing. So I guess it's kind of a Today I Learned, but it's usually a little broader than that as far as, hey, here are some of the things that I generally do. I like that. I'm going to have to steal that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
So
Yeah, that's a good point. Like you bring that up, I have to steal that, right? Obviously we're kind of in the same realm of providing Angular content, right? Multiple podcasts that are doing that. I think that's great that you're willing to take that and run with that. I think that I could ask every once in a while, or people will joke and stuff like that. Oh, what about your competition adventures in Angular and stuff like that? I absolutely don't look at it any sort of way like that, right? I love the fact that we have multiple places that we can provide content to our community. I think that there's certainly space for even more. Anybody else wants to do stuff like that. I think it's just great that our community has different sources to get this content from, right?
Yep. Well, the other thing is I've been asked the same thing about quote unquote competition. And I'm like, so let's see. What are your 3 favorite TV shows? Are they competitors of each other? No, because they're not on at the same time, right? Or you can go watch the one that's on at the same time as the other one on Hulu or something. I mean, we're talking about, if you listen to every Adventures in Angular episode as it comes out, I think our shortest shows have been 25, 30 minutes, and our longest shows, go a little over an hour. So let's say that it comes out to an hour. So we take up an hour every week. If they go watch Angular Air or listen to Angular Air every week, that's another hour out of their week. If they have an hour commute or a half-hour commute, we'll take up one day, they'll take up the other day. The only time we actually compete is if somebody fills all of their available listening time and they have to decide what to drop. And in that case, if they drop us because they like Angular Air better, or vice versa, it's because wherever they're at, that's the show that's serving them better, and more power to them.
Yep, absolutely.
But most people haven't filled up their available listening time. They'll kind of pick and choose what they want to listen to. They'll pick and choose what makes sense for them. And in that case, I mean, the more stuff that's out there, the better off everybody is.
Yep,
definitely. So we were talking a little bit about keeping on top of topics and finding guests and stuff. And related to that, I kind of was interested to hear from you, Justin, as far as right now, from where you are at personally in your development cycle, what are the things that are on your list of things you're interested in, you want to learn, you want to check out and get better at, or find out if they're cool? What's on that list for you?
Okay, well, so part of that list is things that I actually want to have more time to spend with, and I don't know, maybe some of that involves a little bit more of additional learning, but most of this on this list is like, I just want to have time to do it. And that's more time with Angular animations. I love the whole animations and the web stuff, and I want to spend more time doing it, want to be able to code it and that sort of thing. GraphQL, I love GraphQL and what it brings to front-end development and how it bridges that gap for the delivery of data from the server side and some of the challenges that it solves. Having done full stack development for many, many, many years, it's a great solution. So I want to have more opportunity to write that type of code and spend more time with it. And then I think as far as like from a learning standpoint, some of the accessibility stuff, so it has more time to put into digesting that and taking that in and learning more the details about that, as well as like IE18N and language services and stuff like that, translation stuff. Just spend some more time with that in the learning phases.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. So how much does like your own personal interests influence what content you bring onto the show?
I think part of, I like to feel that I have a good sense of the pulse of the community and what's going on. I spend a lot of time, monitoring that and trying to understand and, again, from wanting to help people out and educate people and stuff like that, I feel that I need to understand what they're looking for and what they need and bridge that gap. So I feel like I've got a good handle on that on a regular basis. So I guess I use that knowledge that I feel I have to help drive what those topics are, pick what those topics are. Like I said, I put together a list that I had kind of curated and planned out, rather than per se running a survey and finding out. So I guess that would be where my part comes into play in terms of kind of driving that content. But then there are some topics that'll come up that Angular elements. We're going to have Rob on talking about Angular elements. I love the whole Angular elements thing. And I mean, I think that the community wants to hear that too, right? And wants to check that out too. So I think a lot of my passions will align with what a lot of people want out there. I like to think. I don't know.
Right.
Yep. No, it makes sense. It's funny too, because I do it more on JavaScript Jabber than Adventures in Angular, but we've had some shows that they're tangentially related to JavaScript, and mostly it was because I thought they were cool topics. So, and
So-
we've had a few of those from other hosts too. So, yeah.
Speaking of your influence on Angular Air, I'm interested in your in talking about your intros. And I was just on there, and you had this hilarious intro where you got caught in the middle of a phone call with your mom.
I did. She needs some Angular help, so I was helping her out.
Angular help, yep.
And
As moms
I told
do.
her I'd do this show the show's on 11 a.m. every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific time. But she's on the East Coast, so maybe she got her times mixed up and called me for some tech support. I don't know. Yeah, so I mean, that was one of the most exciting things for me to get this opportunity to take on the hosting duties for Angular Air, and the opportunity that Jeff Welpley gave me to pass that on was the opportunity to just do more presentation stuff, more that sort of thing, performance and things like that. And so it's an element that I really wanted to bring to it beyond just discussing the technical content, was to try and have some fun with it, to try and bring my character, my persona to it. And so one of the ways I think I can do that is through these intros. I don't do them all the time, but I try and do them every once in a while. And it's certainly fun. Kind of plan something out and then roll with it, test it out on my wife and daughter, see if they think it's good and entertaining. Test it out on my dog, see if he responds. And then if so, then I'll make it the show. Sometimes I'll just do it. I don't know. But yeah, it's fun. I think it's the element that I want to try and bring my character to the hosting.
Do you find that your dog is a fairly good judge of what will be a hit and what won't be?
My dog loves me unconditionally, so I don't think he's really a good choice. He also follows me around everywhere I go. Like if I go from one room to the other, he's not asleep, he'll wake up and just walk and go sit where I'm at. Like he just attached to my hip, and so it probably take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, depends on how good whatever you have in your hand smells, right? For the dog.
Pretty much, right?
Does it smell like bacon? Does it not smell like bacon?
So another thing I think I was really interested in finding out from you was, since you've been running the show now, you said about a year, is that right?
Yeah, it's a little over a year. Yeah.
A little over a year. In that time, what sort of like difficulties and challenges have you discovered that you have taking care of Angular Air?
So, there's several things that I need to do to kind of maintain it and curate it, from collecting the guests to planning that schedule to putting together we do it through YouTube, through a Hangouts, live Hangouts stream. And so I've got to set all those episodes up ahead of time in order to do that. So it's not just a matter of like, okay, let's do this time. Let's kick it off and start a recording right in a chat session or hang out there. I have to actually queue those up on YouTube, get them all configured, that sort of thing. Got to prep with YouTube. You can have it auto send out a tweet, social media stuff once the episode goes live. So I got to put that content in there. We have a Slack channel, Slack group that we set up with a separate channel for each show that we bring in our guests and our panelists to discuss and plan things out. So setting up of that, setting up the doc that goes over it, updating the website, that sort of thing. So it's a lot of things that go into it, right? That when I'm on top of it, it's not so bad. When things get busy in my everyday life, and that slips a little bit, then it becomes more challenging. You feel a little pressure to do that.
I can identify with that too. Holy cow.
Right. right?
When it's good, it's good, and when it's crazy busy, it's hard.
You're just like, oh man, what? I think one of the challenges that I'm sitting on right now that's hard is dealing with episode notes, right? So we're in the stage right now where we have this legacy website for our show, and it's serviced us great. I want to update it. I want to get that kind of more, automated with some stuff with episodes that go up there and all these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was planning to do it, trying to put time into it. Real world stuff comes up, other stuff comes up, and I haven't had a chance to really put the time into it. And so part of that is providing our episode notes up there, that sort of thing. We do this video cast and it's on YouTube, but there's no way on YouTube to put up any type of notes for the thing other than just general text around the description.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't really put links and all the show note type of stuff. We deliver the audio out through Podbean to iTunes and Google Play and stuff like that. And so through there, I can put show notes in there, right? And so I can take our show notes doc and I can put it in there, but that's only good for people that are listening, to the audio feed, and most of the stuff's on the video. So I don't really have a place to surface that right now, and I've kind of been waiting on that until I redo the site so that I could have that as the home for the show notes. And so right now we're in this limbo stage where we do picks and stuff like that at the end, and we just don't have any way to share that other than telling them on the video right now. So that's one of the biggest challenges I'm facing right now. But that's just it's just building the tools and automating that stuff and things like that. But I kind of look at it as like the minimum of that right now is that it's a video show. People can go, they could watch it and replay it and pause it and catch that again if they want to kind of get the notes or that sort of thing. So kind of just rolling with that for now until all the fans and the viewers uprise and give me hell for it, and then maybe it'll force my hand.
So one thing that I run into, and I'm curious what your experience is. I've tried doing video off and on. I haven't put a ton of effort into it. Maybe that's why it hasn't really worked out well for us, across the different shows that I'm involved in. But I'm curious, do you have a sense of how many people watch the videos versus listen to just the audio?
So I don't really know. I'd have to look up the audio numbers, but I think, our views on our videos are usually around 1,000 views per episode that we get. We usually get probably right now, I think maybe 18 to 25 people tuning in live while it's streaming live, and then probably about 1,000 views on the regular for each episode, growing over time as the longer they've been around or whatnot. So nothing too crazy. I don't know how much more we get on the audio. I'll have to look at that and see.
Do you think it's more in? Do you think it's more in audio, or do you think it's more in video?
My guess is that it's more in video, and I'm going to take that guess right now because I don't hear a lot of people hollering that I'm 4 episodes behind pushing the audio out.
Oh yeah,
I haven't done that for 4 episodes, and so I'm figuring, well, if everybody's not yelling that that's not up to date for the month, then maybe the most of the viewers are out there on the YouTube. So I don't know. So that's my guess right now.
Are you ready to master Angular? Oasis Digital offers Angular Bootcamp, a 3-day intense workshop class for individuals or teams. They cover Angular 4 and 2 and focus on the skills and knowledge you need for complex, data-rich applications. They also still offer AngularJS for teams supporting older projects. Bring them to your site or send developers to them in St. Louis, San Francisco, New York, DC, and other cities, and online at angularbootcamp.com. So what does the future look like for Angular Air? Are you looking to just continue doing what you're doing? Are you looking at, getting specific guests or people on?
Yeah, so right now, I think part of it is the update of the site, the updated automation of some of these tools. I'm hoping to get a little more time to spend into that and dial that in to make that process a lot easier.
I fought a lot of the automation stuff, just so you're aware. So if you want to talk through some of that and get some ideas, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to do that. So, dialing that in, right now we don't do any type of sponsorship stuff. And there's been queries about that. And so I'll probably going into this next year, take a hard look at that and figure out how we could probably work that in. Usually I do, plugs and stuff, help people out, that sort of thing. But more and more people are querying about that. So I want to kind of dial into that. And as far as the content, just more of the same, try and provide value each week. Something that's the pulse of what people are looking to do. I think one of the challenges I'll face going into year 2 for me is to, audit and look through year 1 that I had and make sure I can, I'm not repeating topics and not, new stuff, right? Provide new content that's not there. And that may be a little bit of a challenge because some of the things that are really, really hot right now are things that we've had shows on. So how do you keep delivering the hotness, right, without overlapping and stuff like that? So I think that'll be a challenge. But the other thing that we do, I like to make it a mix of getting that content out there, getting the content that people want out there, but also providing a platform for new people that want to speak, that want to deliver content, an easy way that they can do that, right? And I'm always amazed at how I get these people that, somebody comes to me and says, I really want to get into speaking and I want to talk at NGConf and I want to do these things and how do I get going? And, and I tell them, yeah, come on our show and you can do an episode and it'll be a great thing. It'll be recorded. You can showcase it later. You can have it as a demo reel, but you can also get a feel and it's a comfortable spot. There's no pressure. If you're live coding, no big deal. If you just scratch up on something, but we'll just keep going. It's a real comfortable way to get into it, and it provides you a platform for doing that. And as long as you're providing content that's helpful, then it's great, right? And people will get excited, and they're like, "Well, I can get to be a guest on Angular Air." I'm like, yeah, it's not that big, right? I mean, we have big people in the community, but like it's not like some crazy show. You're good. It'll be a good fit. So so still providing that opportunity for up and coming people to have a place to deliver content, as well as getting the people that have been around in our community to come and be on. And I've had a couple people there's a couple people that I have on my list that I haven't had on yet. So I'm going to try and get those on in 2018, see what I can do. Dan Wallean's one of them. I haven't had Dan Wallean on yet. I got to get him on.
Come on, Dan.
John
Dan.
Papa, Ward Bell. I don't think I've had any shows with them yet, so it'd be cool to get some of those on.
We're lucky when they're on here.
Yeah. Well, I think we hit a busy season, and John changed jobs, and it just
he's a different kind of corporate shill now.
Yeah. Yep.
So one other thing, my last question that I really had for you is running a podcast, being part of Narwhal, being a pretty big player in the community. You have to keep your ear to the ground and know what's around, what's coming up, what are the popular topics and stuff. I'm kind of interested to hear your take on the present and future of Angular overall.
Yeah, so Stephen was on our show yesterday talking about some things, and he gave some feedback on the interactions he's had as a developer advocate with clients, with enterprise and things like that. And one thing that I thought was a good description of this, of where we're at, I think, is that people have settled into Angular, right? They've settled into the nuances of it, how to use it, how to do the core stuff, how to start building apps with it. And now we're kind of on this edge of, okay, how do we get advanced with it? How do we really start solving these more challenging things? How do we fully implement an app with all of these challenging architecture questions and things that we face, and pull that off in the Angular ecosystem, this Angular platform, because really Angular is a platform that has all the elements covered, right? So it needs to have a way to do that for all these things. And so I think that's probably, and I think you see that with something like NGRX having a lot of popularity right now, and a lot of people are wanting to know more about it, because that's tackling a problem that's beyond just building an app with some screens and some list detail views and things like that. Now you're solving these challenging architecture front end problems, right? And you're using NGRX to do that. And I think that that's probably where we're going to see more of the pulse going forward is how do we do this next level stuff with Angular? How do we solve these challenging things with Angular?
That's a really good perspective.
So similar question to, the future of Angular. Again, I talk to people and they're like, wait, you do a show on Angular? And I'm like, so I tell them yes. And then they're like, well, isn't React the hot thing now? Or, some people go all the way to, Vue is starting to eat React's lunch. So, is it React now or Vue now? Or are people still doing Angular? And, I have my answer, but I'm curious, what's your answer to that?
I think there's plenty of people that are doing AngularJS as well as Angular. There's a vast majority of people that have settled in and decided on that as their stack. They have apps running on that. They're building new apps on that sort of thing. I think that it's the product of the development world that we live in, right? In front-end development, there's many ways to do many things, and you pick something that fits for what you're doing, and you feel good about it, and then you settle in with it, and you ride it out. And maybe at some point you decide we're going to switch frameworks and we're going to rebuild and we're going to do something, or we hit a wall and we're like, well, this might be better. Or you get people that'll be excited about new tech and they just want to switch because it's something new and shiny. And it's part of the excitement of, I think that's a product of doing front-end development and web development. And one of the great things about front-end development is you get the ability to write something and deliver it to an end user instantly, right? And you get to write something and see it in action right away. You don't have to compile. I use that lightly in terms because we do kind of now compile,
yeah, we do.
Right? But I mean, you can build this UI, you can build this interaction stuff, and you can run it in a browser right away, and it's instant gratification, right? And so there's a lot of excitement around that, and I think that as a result, we get excited about new shiny things because they're all, the environment that we're in. So, but I think that's good. And I think that's fine for, everybody's just picking what they need to run on. And then you live with that stack and you ride it, and then you make decisions on when you change it or whatnot. But there's so much, there's so many people using, both AngularJS and now Angular that it's going to be around. I think it's just, it's there.
Yep. Well, the other thing is that I talk to people and they're like, well, is the community shrinking? And that really hasn't been my experience. So as far as popularity goes, I think people always want to try new things. And once again, people will kind of settle into what makes sense. I think that's a good way of putting it. So, if it's got momentum for you, then you'll stick with it. I know a lot of people who are in various communities across the web development space. So in Ruby on Rails was hot 10 years ago. And, I still see people joining that community. And I talk to a lot of my friends from that community, and it's, the new hotness over there is Elixir and Phoenix. And, so it's like, oh, so are you doing Phoenix now? And they go, well, yeah, my day job, I do some or something like that. But then they go, but if I need to really get work done, I go back to the old standby, which is Rails. And I think, Angular's that for a lot of people. They may be in the React space because people are talking about it. They may be checking out Vue because people are talking about it. But when they need to get crap done, they know Angular, and they know that they can move quickly with Angular. And so they come back to it. And I think the other thing is that a lot of people gauge the popularity of a thing by how much people are talking about it. And they're still inventing a lot of this stuff in React. They're still inventing a lot of this stuff in Vue. And so there's always news. And Angular, even once Angular 2 was released, and now we're at Angular 5, but, even when Angular 2 was released, a lot of this stuff we had already invented, and we just updated it so it worked with the current version of Angular. And so, just because there's not a lot of news and a lot of people going, this is a new thing that makes this pain that we had in Angular really bad, go away or a lot less, doesn't mean that people aren't using it. And a lot of people like Angular for the fact that it's mature and it's got a lot of these solutions already available for it. And so, anyway, I think it really just comes down to perspective. If you're out there trying to decide which one to use, that's one thing. But, if you've picked a technology stack, there's a lot going for you to keep using it, as long as they're willing to keep updating and maintaining and supporting it.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it's that whole concept of like, are you creating new apps, right?
Yeah.
If you're in the mode of creating new apps, then you're thinking about these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which framework do I use? If you have an app and you're adding code and enhancing code on that app, well, you're already on that stack, right? And you're just concerned about making that as good as possible, right?
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I see, because I've played with React, I've played with Vue. I mean, for heaven's sake, Joe and I do a JavaScript podcast together, and so we talk about these other areas, and the primary area of functionality for Angular, React, and Vue is the component. And when you're looking at those concepts, they're pretty comparable. It's just the way that you organize the code around them, and then what options you have to add things to them that are different. So,
yep.
Anyway, it's really interesting time to be a web developer.
It is. And for me, I always like to tell people that I'm a co-op gamer. I do a lot of gaming, as Joe knows, and I like to qualify myself as a co-op. I love playing together with people. I love being on a team. So I don't like the whole competition thing, one-on-one thing. I'm always about how do we get it done as a unit, right? And so I think I carry that focus on throughout everything. When I look at these things, like talk about like framework wars and things like that, it's like, look, I just want everybody to enjoy what they're doing and be successful at what they're doing and embrace whatever that is for everybody, right? And get this done together.
Yep. Well, I think that outlook is healthy, both from the perspective of let's not fight about this stuff, and also from the standpoint of the things that are out there changing the world right now. A lot of those are technological things, right? It's the whatever features you can, but even then it's not what they coded into the iPhone. It's how that impacts your life, right? How you actually use it, and a lot of these other applications that we see coming out that are revolutionizing industries or charity or all these other areas where we operate, day in and day out, and where we actually make a difference. It doesn't matter if it's written in React or Vue or Angular, and nobody cares, right? It's the actual use of the thing that makes a difference. And so if you're going to go out there and make a world impacting thing in Vue, great, good for you. And if you decide halfway through that you want to switch to Angular, great, good for you. But you're making a world impacting thing. I mean, that's what matters. And that's the co-op game where we're all playing that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, well
totally
said.
Agree. Very well said.
Awesome. So next NGConf, Justin and Joe are going to pull together beers and board games. I will totally be there. I'll bring my Diet Coke and we'll do it. And I'm totally making that up, but I think it'd be fun. Anyway, so if you have one goal for Angular Air, what is it? Like what is that one thing that you're trying to accomplish or be the resource for in the community? Is it just general knowledge, or is there something that you specifically want viewers or listeners to get out of your show?
Yeah, it's a pretty simple goal, and I just look at it and go, look, if each episode, if I could just improve one person's developer experience, I feel like it's successful. If I just reach one person, one viewer, and show them something, our guest help deliver them something that's like this aha moment or something that clicks for them, and they go out and turn around and, like you said, build that thing that changes things or contributes to something. If I could just impact one person with each show, I feel like it's successful. Beyond just me and the panelists, then that's good, and then everything else is just a bonus from there. So I guess it's, that's the goal, and then just keep doing that on a weekly basis, and keep providing that and have fun doing it. And I think the other goal would be to maybe do more intros, do more of those fun intros, come up with more skits and more things that can kind of be entertaining, that sort of thing.
Sounds good.
Awesome. One more question just came up to me. I wanted to ask: have you submitted yet to the CFP for NGConf?
You're gonna ask me that on here, huh? So Joe, okay, I'm gonna tell you what I'm thinking right now. I'm thinking, I think we're gonna do a Narwhal workshop on NX, and so I'll be a part of that. So right now, I'm thinking that that's the only thing I'm gonna do at NGComp, and I want to take in NGComp beyond after that workshop day as an attendee, which I've never done. I've been to 2 NGComps and I spoke at both, and up through the talk, you're just out of it, right?
Right.
And at Mix, when we did Angular Mix, I didn't do a talk there. I didn't have anything like that, so I just got to be an attendee, and it was the opportunity to engage with all these people I know in the community. I was totally focused from day one, right? And that was pretty fun. And so I kind of want to have that experience at NGComp and see what that's like. But it's hard. It's hard to think that and think maybe I won't submit something. I don't know, because there's always that urge to be on that stage. Is pretty amazing to have that opportunity. So maybe a 5-minute talk. Maybe I'll submit a 5-minute talk. I don't know. We'll see.
Hey, listen, I totally get what you're saying, though. As an organizer, I have yet to actually truly experience and enjoy NGConf. Never gotten that opportunity. I'm always running.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, well, maybe you need some help with that someday. Maybe I'll fill in your role someday, and then you can just enjoy it and sit back and take it in.
Sit back and relax. Awesome.
All right. Well, let's do some picks. This episode is sponsored by Linode. Linode is offering listeners of this podcast a $20 credit, which is good for 4 free months at their lowest plan. Their plans start at 1 gigabyte of RAM for $5 a month. You can get your servers in any of their 10 data centers, and their high memory plans start at 16 gigabytes. Get a server running in under a minute. They do hourly billing with a monthly cap on all plans and add-on services like backups, node balancers, Longview, etc. VMs for full control, running Docker containers, encrypted disks, VPNs, etc. You can run a private Git server. They provide native SSD storage, 200 gigabit network, and Intel E5 processors. They have 24/7 friendly support, even on holidays, and a 7-day money-back guaranteed. So go check them out at linode.com/adventures in Angular. So I've got a few picks that I'm going to throw out here. So Brandon Sanderson released a new book in the Stormlight archive, and I've really been enjoying rereading or re-listening. I use Audible, re-listening to the books. So the first book is The Way of Kings. Anyway, just cool magic system, great character development. They're terrific books. Another book that I'm looking forward to consuming that I haven't yet is called Artemis, and it is by Andy Weir. He wrote The Martian. And I'm just like, man, if this is as good as The Martian, I'm a happy guy. So I'm going to put both of those out there. And then one last thing that I'm going to just throw out there is, and I mentioned this yesterday when we recorded JavaScript Jabber, but it'll probably come out like 3 or 4 weeks after this one's released, because we're further ahead on JavaScript Jabber than Adventures in Angular. So, if you're like, I missed it when he said that, well, it's because it hasn't come out yet. Anyway, so I've been doing a series of interviews for the different shows, my JavaScript story, my Angular story, my Ruby story, and they kind of go along with Adventures in Angular and Ruby Rogues and JavaScript Jabber. And I reached out to Nicholas Zakis, who is he's been in the JavaScript community for a long time. We had him on JavaScript Jabber to talk about a bunch of stuff, and he's going through some pretty heinous health stuff right now. And so he basically said, look, I'm not well enough to really do an interview and prepare for one. And I was like, well, holy cow, what can people do? And, he's at the point now where he can't really even work. And, he did point out, well, I've written a few books. And I'm like, okay, well, if these are books I can recommend, I'll totally recommend them. Well, guess what, folks? I can totally recommend them. So for somebody that puts a lot of content out in the community, he's written a whole bunch of blog posts and other stuff, has gone way out of his way for the JavaScript community. I'm just going to send people over to pick up his books. If you go to Amazon and just search for his books, he has a book on ECMAScript 6. And, that's pretty good. If you're using TypeScript for your development. Understanding I can't even talk. Understanding ECMAScript 6 is definitely a great place to start, because they pull in a lot of those standards and then they add, when the ECMAScript proposals get to a certain point, they add a lot of those into. Another one is object-oriented JavaScript. He also has professional JavaScript for web developers, high-performance JavaScript, maintainable JavaScript. I mean, these are all the things that you really, really want, right? Professional Ajax, maybe not so much. But, these other books, I think, are terrific things to add to your library, and it helps somebody out in the community who has gone out of his way to help people learn JavaScript concepts. So I'm going to pick that. And then one other thing that I'm also going to shout out about is when I was in New York City, I wound up having dinner with Nader Dabit from React Native Radio, Michael Jackson from React Training. He's been on JavaScript Jabber as well. He used to live in Salt Lake, so I know him somewhat well. And then an open source maintainer who I'm not going to name outright, who came to meet us for dinner, and he mentioned that he works full-time for a fairly large company. They allow him to work on a very, very large and popular JavaScript project half-time, and then he spends like 20 hours a week or 30 hours a week working on the same open source project the rest of the week. And it's a huge maintenance burden. It's a lot of work. And so, and he doesn't really get a lot of support for it, and a lot of people, they want the updates, but, they don't really do anything to support the project. So I'm just going to encourage people to go check out, and this is another kind of selfless pick, but go to opencollective.com and look at some of these big tools that you're using, right? I don't know if there's an open collective for Angular, but, if there's Angular Material or TypeScript or Babel or, some of these tools that just everybody uses, Grunt, Gulp, if they've got open collectives, I mean, just give them $10 a month, just as kind of a, hey, look, we're using this, we're getting value out of it. Let me help you make your car payment or something. So, I guess the overarching thing here is just support for the community in more ways than just a pat on the back when you see them at the conference and, gee, I really like your repo. They're putting in a lot of time and a lot of times without a lot of reward, or, they put this in until they can't anymore. And, because they get sick, and, let's just go out of our way and make sure that people know that, hey, look, we recognize that this is kind of a full-time commitment that you're not really getting paid for. So, here's at least something. Anyway, those are kind of my thoughts. Joe, what are your picks?
Alrighty, so I want to pick an article that I read a while ago called "The JavaScript Journey with Only 6 Characters." I'm not sure if I've mentioned it before on the show, but I keep coming back to thinking that, well, somebody else has taken that same concept that you can basically use just 6 characters and express everything in JavaScript and write any JavaScript program using only 6 characters from ASCII, basically. You can write any program and express anything. And it's when you first hear about it, it doesn't really sound like something that's real. But if you look it up, you can find out that this is totally real, that you can totally do this. Well, somebody went and took that concept and created a little compiler where you can type in a line of code and it will encode it into an alternate form using just the 6 characters. You can take that, copy it, paste it into your console and run it, and it truly does work, where all you're pasting in is basically parens, square brackets, plus, I think, exclamation mark. That's it. Yeah, exclamation mark, plus, parens, and square brackets. Those are the 6 characters. And with just those 6 characters, you can write any JavaScript. The URL for this compiler, which is hilarious, is called JS and then the F word. So .com. So if you want to go check it out, that's the URL. It's pretty dang funny. You can write in just a simple line of code. Of course, encoding it in the 6 characters takes forever. Like just a simple alert, like what would be 20 characters, is like several hundred characters, several hundred, maybe over 1,000 characters to actually make it run using just the 6 characters. But it's still pretty funny to see just some of the weird power, both power and weirdness of JavaScript. So that's my first pick, is a JavaScript journey with only 6 characters. My second and final pick is my MacBook Pro. 5 years ago, I bought a MacBook Pro because I quit my job and went off on my own, and my company had been providing me with one, and I needed my own. So I bought myself one. It was the top of the line at the time. And I don't know, Apple, I guess because people just love shiny stuff, maybe that's why they're selling more computers. But I've had it for 5 years, and I have like zero need to upgrade to an. Finally, I have one defect. It literally runs like I bought it 2 months ago. Like, it's that smooth as how it runs. The performance, it hasn't decayed at all, which to me is an absolute miracle. That's a bigger feat than putting a man on the moon, in my opinion, is to have a 5-year-old computer that runs like it's 2 months old. But I finally have one small problem. The little rubber feet underneath have popped off. I don't even notice that, but that's like the one thing that's actually gone wrong with my MacBook Pro. Other than that, it has been an absolutely amazing, rock-solid machine for 5 straight years. I still love it. I do want to upgrade to the newer ones for, they have a couple of features that I wouldn't mind. But I just can't justify it because I have no need to get rid of what I've got. It's such an amazing machine, even 5 years later. So that's my pick, is Apple makes a pretty freaking awesome laptop in the MacBook Pro.
Joe, they have the rubber feet replacement on like a full kit on on Amazon for $5.
Oh, you just ruined it for me. Now I don't have an excuse now.
Yeah, I had the 2013 model of MacBook Pro, and I had a hardware failure, so I have a brand new one. Yeah. And Thunderbolt 3 dongle hell is the only problem I really have with it. But yeah.
See, I'm happy. I would like to get USB-C for the power, not because I hate that aspect of it that they keep changing and I love in this particular model, I actually have an HDMI port, which I love that. I don't have to worry about adapters. But with the USB-C power input, you could take any phone battery or the really big phone batteries and turn them into an extra battery, so I could have enough battery to last on an intercontinental flight and last me, 10 hours.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes a big difference. Although the last couple of flights I've taken, I've actually had a plug, like a regular old plug, so it didn't even matter.
Yep.
I guess like the one reason I'd upgrade.
I guess if I'm going to complain about it, I should pick my solution. So there are hyperdrive hubs that you can get that plug into the dual USB-C Thunderbolt 3 port on the side of your machine. They're $100. You can get them at Best Buy or online. And they come with an HDMI, 2 USB-Cs, an SD card reader, a micro SD card reader, 2 regular USB ports. And so I just plugged one of them things into the side of it, and it works fine. So
that's pretty cool.
So I complained about it, and then I spent $100, and that's not a problem anymore. I don't dare leave that thing plugged into it when I slide it into my bag because I don't want to get broken off. But other than that, yeah, I just plug the thing in. And when I get home, I pull the one, I just plug the one in that has all my home monitors and stuff plugged into it and do the same thing. So anyway, Justin, what are your picks?
All right. So one of my picks is reactive.how website. I can't get enough of this thing. It's so awesome. It's a bunch of these little animations that describe how streams and RxJS work. And so it breaks down showcasing operators and things like that, like last, take, filter, those sort of things in this visual animation that shows the stream of these marble diagram type of things in action. And it just does an amazing job of distilling that information down, which is a hard concept. I love it. They get a new one, I think, every week, maybe. So that's really cool. So reactive.how. And then Mr. Robot. I got to pick Mr. Robot. It's season 3, I think, right now. It's an amazing show. I love it. I think it's high quality cinematography, just storytelling, everything for a cable television show. It's pretty great. Love it. And then my third pick, got to pick episode 8, Star Wars, right around the corner. It's the only thing on my mind right now. I have a hard time thinking about anything else. I'm super excited and jacked up about that. So can't wait.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It comes out the day after my birthday. So
Nice. I need, and I think they're going to do that with the next one. But I needed to get back to my birthday, which is in May. And, all of traditional Star Wars used to come out around my birthday. So I was excited about that. And then they switched to the December thing. And it's like, but hey, I'll take it whenever I get it.
Yep. Awesome. All right. Well, if people want to follow what you're working on or, read blog posts or Twitter or GitHub, or they want to check out Narwhal, maybe you've given some talks at conferences. Where is all that stuff? Yeah.
So I'm on Twitter at Schwarty, SCHWARTY. I'm on GitHub, JSchwarty. I need to figure out who's got Schwarty and see if they're done with it. But JSchwarty on GitHub. I post on, I have Schwarty.com, which is my website. I have some blog posts there, but I'm doing some blog posts recently on our Narwhal blog, so blog.nrwl.io, as well as nrwl.io is where we can find information about our company, what we're up to, that sort of thing. AngularAir.com, every week doing an Angular Air. And I have, on my site, Schwarty.com, I have a list of some of the talks I've done, NGConf, other places, things like that. So you can check those out there as well. And then please, everybody feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. I love talking shop, talking stuff, helping people out. So yeah, stay in touch.
Awesome.
Very cool. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. Thanks for coming, Justin.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. It's really fun to talk about this topic. And thank you for putting together and delivering all the content that you all do through Adventures in Angular. The community and myself, we all really appreciate it. So thank you for everything that you all do.
Yeah,
likewise.
Same to you at Angular Air. And I know Narwhal, you guys put out a lot of stuff too. So thanks for all that.
Cool.
All right. Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CACHEFLY.com to learn more.